Good afternoon, and
Hey
thank you
guys.
for joining us today. My name is David Talbot. I'm Managing Director and Head of Research at Red Cloud Securities, and I'm delighted to host another Red Cloud webinar on uranium today. We will hear from Fission 3.0 management, including Dev Randawa, he's Chairman and CEO, and Raymond Ashley, VPX. Now, during today's webinar, they will provide an overview and outlook on the company, and then we will take some questions, and you can type those questions into the chat box at any time, and we'll take as many as we can. But before we kick things off, first we need to discuss the fine print. During this Fission 3.0 webinar, forward-looking statements may be made, and I would direct listeners to the forward-looking statements outlined on the page 2 of the corporate presentation that can be found on the company website, fission3corp.com. For Red Cloud Securities, Inc., I would highlight this webinar is for information purposes only. It should not be considered a solicitation or recommendation to buy or sell securities. We note this call does not consider the particular situation or needs of individual investors, and participants should rely on their own investigation and seek their own professional advice before investing. So please see our most recent research located on the Red Cloud website for specific disclosures on Fission 3.0. So before we get to it, first I want to just say a couple words. Ongoing news from Ukraine and fear of the Russian uranium and enrichment disruptions seems to have dissipated somewhat. Spot buying has slowed a little bit. Uranium prices have been somewhat stable. So, uranium did start the year at a $40 per pound price, and it surpassed up to $63 a pound in April, the highest we've seen since March 2011. However, it has settled back down to $47.75. Bottom line, we still like the fundamentals for driving uranium prices higher. With disinvestment in the uranium sector, there have been a lack of exploration and discoveries, and new mines will be needed in the coming years to replace mine closures, let alone cover growth in uranium demand. So with that, I want to now turn it over to Dev and Ray to update the audience on Fission 3.0. Gentlemen.
Thank you, David. If someone can throw up the presentation, there it is. Well, first of all, thank you, David. Fission is an exploration and company. To build an argument for us, we've got to, I believe, build a reason for why you want to be in Canada of all places and why be in uranium. And I'm going to try to answer those questions as we go forward. I will say that there's a lot of, obviously, tremendous amount of news going back and forth, and it's got to be confusing. But I think the thing that stands out to me, Morgan Stanley has said that the number one commodity moving forward is uranium in the next 12 months. And one thing I know about investing is that you don't have to get the stock right, but if you're in the right sector, they will go up. And you don't have to pick a stock, you're picking a sector. And that's what I like about being where we are. So it's a great piece, but Morgan Stanley's written pieces all out there that I think will really help. Just the legal stuff. I've been doing this since 1996, seen several cycles. But there are two things that stick out to me significantly that are so different than any other cycle we've ever been in. That's why we could have a super cycle. We're in the beginning of one, and that is two. We've never had a Democratic Party in power that pushed nuclear as part of the green solution. Never before. And if you saw the passing on Sunday night, less than 36 hours ago, the Democrats have pushed through the new green bill, which is going to put a lot of money towards green energy. And then Secretary of Energy Granholm, she says, hey, we've got to have it. We can't reach our lofty goals. And that's part of the bigger, when you see worldwide, first time I've heard in the last year, green energy, our lofty goals, how do we get there? Well, we're only going to get there with adding nuclear power to the mix. So I believe that those are the two big things that, all my years, I would always watch these politicians over and over, talk about how they're going to, get emissions down, but somehow thought you could do it through solar and sun. It's never happened. And I think the best example is what's happened in Germany. The hypocrisy is shown their emissions didn't go down 1 or 2%, actually went up 25% because they didn't count on the wind not blowing as much. And as they found out the hard way, the problems with air, sort of using wind and sun, they're not reliable, they're intermittent, and now they're using coal. Yes, coal. Unfortunately, politicians are more concerned about staying in power than telling the truth. So now that's what's happened. So I think that's in the deep winter, the winter is coming. Not the Game of Thrones line, but winter is coming, and it's not going to be, and they have to rely on some sources. So you're seeing countries that are always anti, like Germany said they were going to take them out now. Majority of people said, no, we got to not only leave them growing, we think about starting them. Japan, Korea, all these countries that were going backwards, again, politicians making decisions based on which way the wind is blowing. Now people can't heat their homes and stuff, and energy prices are going through the roof. People are seeing, maybe energy isn't free. So that's a massive change, which I believe will start to show up in more investment in the spot with Sprots. That's what drove that, them buying all the uranium. Anyways, that's my general rant there. We need nuclear power to double if we're going to even get close to it. And that's, that means not 450 reactors, we need 900. And we think 2050 is far away, it's not. So there's a big push all over the world for it. Again, you're seeing the United Nations saying the same thing that many of us have been saying for a long time. It is the most environmentally friendly generation source. Maybe hydropower, but then people say knocking out valleys and killing animals. So it is the right place to be. And finally, I believe more and more people are seeing it. Which is hard to believe that there's more reactors in place now than Fukushima. And I think, you see it constantly. We've always said it, but now people outside, we're no longer preaching to the choir that, what's going on. And obviously, having 4.3 million, they're going to buy $4.3 billion worth of purchase programs. And you see companies now saying, hey, we'd like to provide that for you, which had never, again, happened before, requests for uranium. As you can also see that utilities aren't ready. They have not really planned ahead. And that's one, because I believe there's a cultural issue with utilities, they act like governments. And secondly, it's not a big part. Uranium is a very small part of what you do in actually producing it. It's a very small part. So the price of uranium is insensitive to the overall cost of nuclear power. Again, this tells you demand supply deficit moving ahead. I believe that what could really push us to the $100 uranium will be as SMR, small modular reactors, come into place. For example, the big number I saw was Buffett and Bill Gates, spending $4 billion in Wyoming, the coal mine shutting down, and they're putting a nuclear plant in. I believe that's the answer for the North Sea, Fort McMurray, all these areas. That's what we'll see. And you're seeing funding that you never would normally see. UK government's given over $275 million to Rolls-Royce to move them ahead. So let's say you now believe that nuclear power is the place to be moving ahead, like Morgan Stanley says. Why us? I would back up and say you should be in uranium, you should own a chemical, have a developer, but the main advantage of having an exploration company is the stock will go up with uranium price. But if they make a discovery, it'll be a 5-10 bagger. So that's one reason you want to be in exploration, that we offer that duality. Now, building, why us? Well, in real estate, it's location. I believe when it comes to junior exploration companies, it's management. Ray has been a part of the team, leading the team in both, leading the team in the Triple R and also with Ross leading, and then we're still got the same team. And what does it matter? Well, if you owned a share of Strathmore back in 2007, today you look in your account, you'll have 4 different stocks for free. You would have some shares of Energy Fuel, which is doing awesome. They just had an RFP with the U.S. government. Denison is about to take over UEX. They paid a higher price than Amir will be. And then you've got Fission Uranium developed Triple R, world class, shallow deposit, and us. So I don't remember he's ever done that before. Split 4 different ways. So in each time we were able to, our technical team was able to use our mind, a little bit of money, get land, bring big money in. The Strathmore was Sumitomo, and Fission Energy was Korean Electric Power Company. And then finally, we had a large investment with Chinese government in Fission Uranium. I believe the same thing will happen with us in Fission 3.0. We're likely to have great talent at Red Cloud to help us. And I tell people all the time, whether David was on the line or not, he's the best uranium analyst out there, that we believe will have funding. So the main reason for looking at us is our track record. This is why we're in Canada, simply great, and you won't get NIMBY. We've had 60 years of uranium experience there, and the rules are set. We have to always honor people, we know what to do with the First Nations people, because we've got experience in it. It doesn't mean it can't change, but it's there. The government's pro. The Saskatchewan government's very pro. Again, I love our acreage and that we have a very strong technical team. That really matters. A lot of people ask, how do you find uranium? And I always call it vectoring in. And, one of the first things you try to do is find these structural corridors, graphitic conductors, how you bring uranium up. So all uranium is always in a conductor or some structure. But then you have to look for alterations, and that's where you need airborne magnetic ground surveys, all these different ways to narrow it down, because that's cheap. Drilling is expensive in the basin. Even though you have flow through money, it's expensive. How does David beat Goliath in the uranium game? Well, back in, I would say, 2000, up to 2011 and 12, nobody had made a discovery in the west side of the basin. Nobody. And because people believed all the uranium had to be in the unconformity model, and therefore it had to be on the east side, the right side of the basin. And so, and they believed you had to be in the basin, on the right side of the basin, the east, and unconformity. Well, there is no arrow. There isn't even a Triple R, unless Ray and Ross use a very unique idea of an innovative airborne technology we used. Basically, we flew a plane, obviously very fast, but close to the ground, picking up indicators of boulders or outcrops. That's how Triple R was found. We found these boulders, we went up ice, made a discovery as we did that. Lee and the guys at NextGen did their airborne, and they had property already. We would have staked it, but it was already an existing company on Titan. And that's how the West was was thinking outside the box. And that's what I like about our team. When there's seismic surveys, they think outside the box. When you find boulders, this is kind of how you'll find them. That's what Triple R was, give you a rough idea. These are all our projects. As you can tell, they are on both sides of the basin, and some are actually outside the basin. What we see the basin today is very different than it was before. It's shrunk, and it's some of the Mother Nature's done some great work for us in wiping off some of this sandstone, or the late Lucas used to say, this milkshake sitting on hard rock. Why discoveries matter, as I mentioned, it's you can get 5-10 baggers, otherwise you can't. So this summer, what we're doing right now, we did some work on Bird Lake and Seahorse. In summary, we felt it wasn't worth spending money there, but we want to follow up on our Murphy Lake. And Ray, if you want to jump in and talk about what we found, we've news released this so we can talk about it. What did you find on Murphy Lake that convinces you to keep drilling? And maybe you could just jump into after that what you want to do at PLN, and then we can jump into some questions.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you bet. We started a drilling program at Murphy Lake at the beginning of July. Our idea with Murphy Lake was based on regional magnetics. Cameco had drilled a historic hole to the south along a conductor corridor. Based on regional magnetics, we inferred that conductive corridor continued northward and came through our Murphy Lake property into a place where there'd been no previous drilling. That was our theory. We did ground geophysics in the spring, and it confirmed that those conductors, that corridor continued. So in the month of July, we drilled 5 holes. What the drilling showed us was that those conductors were caused by ductile shear zones with graphite and sulfides. And there was resistivity survey done that showed an alteration in the lower sandstone that ended up was confirmed to be caused by clay and faults at the bottom of the sandstone. So hydrothermal alteration in the lower sandstone above graphitic and sulfidic basement structures. And confirmed our theory. Based on that, we found a way to do geophysics between the lakes, because the first geophysics we did was just before the ice had left. And given the good drilling results, and that, it's the right signs, Athabasca high-grade uranium deposits are found along structures just like those. So we've redirected the ground geophysical crew and actually squeezed the lines between the lakes, found a way to do that, interpreted that data, and found that the conductors continue even further north. So a week ago, we started drilling again at Murphy Lake. The targets look really good. The north-south conductor continues for 1.5 kilometers northwards. And then there's a new northeast trending conductor at the north end of the property that's also slated for drilling. Murphy Lake's at the right address. It is 5 kilometers south of ISO's Hurricane deposit. They just put out an initial resource estimate that was of 48 million pounds at a grade of 34.5% with a 1% cutoff. So, and it's it's in the eastern Athabasca near and also east of Cameco's Laroque deposit. So that Murphy's in the right place, and we're seeing all the right signs. So we're really, encouraged by and totally looking forward to the drilling that's ahead of us there. As Dev said, the plan after that for us is we're planning to do some field work at Hardy Bay, where we drilled earlier in the winter. And that work really, it's going to be radon sampling, some prospecting and groundwork really to prepare that project for drilling again next winter. That's Traction Uranium is earning into that property, and they have a spending again next year required for them to earn their first interest. So we're going to ready that property for drilling next winter. And in the fall, we're going back to Patterson Lake North. That's our flagship property. It's immediately north of the Patterson Lake South corridor, where Triple R and Arrow are. Drilling in 2014 and 2019 on what we call the A1 conductor, where the sandstone is shallow. In the south part of the PLN property, found a mineralized corridor where we had sniffs of uranium, all the right signs, graphitic basement structures, elevated pathfinder elements, and that northern 900 meters of that A1 conductor is untested. We've completed the ground geophysics there. So basically the drill holes are planned. And our plan there is to head back to PLN and drill in the fall. So that's what's ahead of us. We're lucky to have been well funded this year. And yeah, we're totally looking forward to the prospects for us ahead.
Yeah, so this is more of some of the work we've done. Like I said, I know we all want to get high-grade discovery. People forget it takes 16, sometimes 100 holes, like MacArthur, before you find something, because these are blobs of uranium. The size of a gym can be 50 to 100 million pounds, but you can be 5 meters away and miss it. So it's not that easy, but we are well-funded, and even if we spend all our money this year in the ground, which is a lot of money, 12.5 million, we'll still have over $5 million, and overheads around 110, 120, including all our legals and stuff. So this is what we did in Lazy Edward. We've done some work in Hardy Bay. Again, it was announced. We'll evaluate all these, and this is the PLN. We have a good joint venture program. I just met with them this morning. So what I'll do is kind of jump to some questions. Someone's asked me, what do I expect in M&A? Yeah, I do see it picking up. Now, I hope Mary doesn't get pissed off, but I had coffee with him last week, and it was a brilliant move by him. He knew that was more valuable to him, more valuable to Dennis than it was to him. So he made a good deal. I don't know if he'll throw another at it. I don't know. So as a result, I think he picks up $9 million in cash as a breakup fee. So it's very, very brilliant move by him. Will there be more? You could see that. But the guys with the big market caps, the ones that have to do it. It has to be there has to be, in my view, Cameco. It has to be a next gen Fission. Those are the guys that can buy smaller companies if it adds to them. So all depends on the shareholder base, what they want to do, to be straight up. I'm trying to think here. We are not active in Peru. Peru was, the problem with Peru is that it was going to cost a lot of money to keep the land. And also the problem is that there's two sets of law, the law in Lima and the law up in the hills. So you can do everything right, but the locals have their own rules, as people have found out. I'm trying to think anything else here. Any thoughts about it? Again, I think that was there weren't, you gotta remember, UEX projects, the main one towards Clough Lake, there was uranium, but it's very deep, and I don't know when I'll get mine. It's also in Lens. So I don't know what other acquisitions, but certainly I believe it just shows you, look, if we really believe in this, no more Russia, Kazakhstan, there's only one place to be, really, when it comes to overall grade, is the Athabasca. We're the second best. So from that perspective, I do see more things happening, but it's going to have to come down to the guys with the big market caps who can absorb companies and projects if it helps them. Obviously, I think if there's a company out there that wants a big portfolio of projects, we're obviously a great target, and we'll see that. So I don't know if David, if I'm missing any questions out there. I see a bunch of stuff that went through.
Yeah, Dev, I'll just pick up from there. So sure. Are you guys finished with your presentation, first of all?
We are.
Yeah, okay. All good. Thank you very much. So just Dev or even Ray, is there any more room in the Athabasca Basin to pick up unstaked ground simply by flying radiometric surveys, or do you think that's already done? It's already, it's already led to many discoveries in the basin, including the Triple R deposit. Is there room to keep doing that?
Well, I can answer that. No, I think there's some room, but not a lot of room left. We did F3s, flew a lot of the edge of the basin on properties that we had staked, over a number of years. So I think there still is room, less room than in the past. Ground was completely locked up during the COVID times because there was holidays on spending to keep ground in good standing. Those holidays are gone now. So again, land is progressively coming open that can be staked by its computer staking. So we continue to look at that Fission. Fission 3, one of the big advantages is that we were looking in the downtimes, continuing to research and look for properties and staking properties when it was out of favor. Now there's a lot more competition in acquiring ground, but we still have a big effort on reviewing what's coming open, and we're in the game trying to acquire what we consider to be the best ground, and that's starting up again.
Right. Okay. Now,
I think David, look, never say never. Number one. If you remember Ted, what was the tall Ted guy from?
Ted O'Connor.
Yeah, he used to say whenever they brought up the idea that they should go to the west side of the basin, they're almost thrown out of the technical meetings, right? But where are the two best discoveries in the last year? It's Triple R and Arrow. So, it's no different. It's like in sports. If the hockey team that's winning is big and brutal, next year's draft picked on big and brutal because that works, so let's keep doing it. Or if it's a fast, now let's pick the skaters. The same thing happens. We can all get very, very narrow-minded about where we look. But I think there's always going to be different ways looking at it. And look at the basin. What Ross and Ray did, they showed people what is the basin was much bigger before, right? So as news, look, that's one thing I like about geologists. They're always dreamers and always thinking outside the box. So I think there'll be more deposits found. Absolutely. And remember, it doesn't take a lot of room, right? And they tend to come in pearls, necklace pearls. So I believe there's lots of room, and I hope we're one of them to find one.
Yeah, I have to add to that, as David has said. Yeah, when you think outside the box, what looks to be far away from the edge of the basin, in some cases may not be so far away from the edge of the basin, and that's about, how that there's certain basins where the edge has thin amounts of sandstone quite far away from the big deep part of it, and so that you can be exploring in what looks to be far away from the unconformity, and that there shouldn't be an Athabasca high-grade unconformity deposit there. But when a lot of research is done and you think outside the box, you might find that people haven't even thought to look in some places. That's when we were fired up in the West, and we still try and think that way.
No, absolutely. I think technology changes, ideas change. Basement-hosted deposits weren't very common pre-2000, and then nothing at that time was off conductor. So suddenly, Hathor found Rough Rider, graphite wasn't needed in the shear zones, and that opened up an awful lot of areas to look. And I think Arrow and Triple R were found pretty soon after that. So good. So thank you for that. Hardy Bay. Sorry, I missed a question here. Murphy Lake. Are you seeking basement-hosted deposits? There or at the unconformity? And have you really uncovered the right structure and alteration to help you vector in on material mineralization?
Well, the way I would answer that is the closest deposit to the Murphy Lake property is Hurricane, and Hurricane is right at the unconformity. It doesn't occur in the basement at all. It's 6 meters wide at the unconformity. So that it makes sense that that's the most likely type of deposit that would occur at Murphy Lake, but we can't keep a closed mind. There are places where there's an unconformity deposit, and 10 kilometers away there's a basement deposit. So we have to we can't know what we're going to find before we find it. We have to have an open mind. And so we're considering both of those things. And really, it's about drilling angled holes at first, and then we will drill an up dip or a down dip hole and try and understand in which direction the alteration is increasing. So we're open-minded to whether it'll be a basement or an unconformity deposit. We do think that the structures we're seeing right now and the alteration we're seeing right now, it fit the geophysical interpretation, and that's why we've expanded the project. It's these corridors. We have to be careful that the first structure we hit is not necessarily the one that we're going to follow. Just stay myopic on that, but to step back to understand the entire width of the corridor that we're in. And as you pointed out, sometimes the mineralization is not exactly on the conductor. It's in a parallel structure that has no graphite in it. So yeah, we have to keep an open mind, but we really, at Murphy, we expanded the program because we like all of the signs that we're seeing. And because it's in the right neighborhood.
Yeah. Okay. And here's a question from the audience as well. Is there a certain type of project you would prefer? Would you like a, sort of a lower grade, shallow, sort of base load E92 style deposit, or a higher grade, deeper project that you can, sink your teeth into? So I'm sure everybody wants high grade at surface. That's
ideally, everybody wants high grade at surface, and such at the end of the day, you want to make your shareholders rich, and so this time, I would take any discovery at this point, but I think at the end of the day, you do want something that's easier to mine too, because if you're going to be taken over someday by a Cameco or whatever, they have to understand what you're doing. Now, Cameco obviously knows a lot about unconformity deposits. I don't know, and I think Orano has a bit more. I could be wrong at looking at some more basement hosted, at least my chats with Christian and the guys there. So, that's one of the things we're missing in our industry. In the gold business, you make a discovery, there are 10 different players to go to. We don't have that. You have to remember our industry was dead for a very long time. So it's we go through this vicious cycle. We lose people, we lose companies. One time Chevron was the #1 uranium player. If you go down to Wyoming, you'd just be blown away all this land that Chevron had, and GE, acquired the Lucky Mac mine, and the two prospectors who had it, David, became the largest shareholders of GE, if you can believe it. So we don't have that. Maybe that'll happen now with people waking up and realizing you can only sell a fantasy for so long to your, the voting public, and tell them that you're going to lower emissions, make the world cleaner, and try to do it through simply using intermittent energy. It won't work, and that's why I think Germany, all these countries have figured it out.
Okay. Question on Hardy Bay. What still needs to be done here prior to drilling, and when might drilling begin?
Well, the main thing that we're doing now is there's been conductors defined that are up ice from the high-grade boulders on the island. We'll be doing work. Those conductors are under the lake, so we'll be doing radon sampling and conceivably follow-up resistivity work on those conductors. That'll be in the early winter from the ice. This summer, there are also cross structures that have been interpreted from high-resolution airborne magnetic data, again, in big ravines in one case, and that's, again, perfect in the up ice direction. So there'll be prospecting done there and radon sampling in that ravine. There's conductors on the North Shore that we want to define to understand how they may relate to the new conductors that were found in the lake. Those conductors are likely to be one of the main focuses of drilling next winter. But the work we do this summer up on the North Shore stands to define targets up in that area as well. Again, still up ice. What the work from the geomorphologists and the work that was done on the island in the past, we did quite a lot of work in 2019 on the island. That was the most likely direction. And then marine seismic, high resolution marine seismic survey looked for sandstone outliers beyond what was thought to be the edge, because the evidence from the boulders on the island were that the source of the uranium is going to be associated with basement and sandstone. So those were the targets that were drilled this winter. The conductor was found, and that's in the right place. So there is a plan to also go back to the island to try and see if we can find additional boulders. The boulder trains on the island are in the northeast part of the island, and we think that the southeast part hasn't been properly investigated. We still want to do more work, try and find more radioactive boulders. A lot of those ones that were found in the 70s were taken away. So we're trying to look for more so that we can study them and be sure that we're looking in the right direction. Make sure that we haven't missed anything important. Triple R was found by finding high-grade boulders. And then the work was done that led to the discovery of that huge deposit. We want to, that's what stands. The analogy is here with Hardy Bay. So, we're really trying to make sure that we don't miss anything and try and find the source that will be at the top of the basement. It has to be for the high-grade boulders to be on surface in a boulder train in the till. So that's the work that's planned basically in September.
Great. Moving on to the PLN project. Is this still considered a high priority project, and do you have any plans for it this year or next?
Oh, absolutely. I think, it's our largest and closest to. We spent a lot of money on it. But we are going to go after more shallow targets. Go ahead, Ray.
It's still our flagship property. The location's right. This winter we tested for the first time by drilling parallel conductors that are parallel to the Patterson Lake corridor. Unfortunately, we can't do more drilling there until next winter. There's swamps, so it can't be drilled in the summer. But A1 conductor, that's already been shown to have uranium geochemistry, strong pathfinder elements. There's dravite there, which is a boron-rich clay. All those things, and it's really shown to be a mineralized corridor. The thing now is to vector into the high-grade pods of uranium that's have all the signs to be along that structure. The northern end of that conductor, and the best results so far are near there. So there's 900 meters to the north of where we have our best results along that conductor that have never been drill tested. The ground EM and resistivity work is completed there, which really provides the actual ability to target the drills, to intersect the structures where there's kinks, where there's inflections, where in cross structure. That's what we're looking for. 900 meters of strike length is quite a lot. These uranium deposits are high grade; they're small, so that's a mineralized corridor that still holds a lot of promise. Mm-hmm. We'll be drilling there.
Yeah, you said 900 meters to the north, and a fair bit of strike. Is this a north-south trending structure you're looking at, or are these intersections with east-west trending parallel structures to PLS?
No, actually, the A1 conductor is almost north-south trending. Everything bends on the PLN property. It goes from being northeast southwest at the south end of the property, and then north trending to head up towards the Cluff Lake mine. All the conductors heading up to Cluff Lake are north-south, basically north-south trending, and that's what the A1 conductor is. And we also drilled this winter another new north-south conductor that was never before known, before the work that F3 did, and we drilled the first hole there this winter. It's the sandstone is deep there, but nonetheless, that the first drill hole did show that a new graphitic structural corridor previously unknown. Again, it looks really right. That's also on a north-south trending conductor in the northern part of the property.
Okay, great. Thank you. Cash balance. What's your cash balance right now? Remaining budget for this year? What might you want to spend next year, Dev?
Well, we have to spend all our flow through. When that's done, we'll have about 5.1, 5.2 left. So more than enough and all depends how much flow through we raise, David, and that's a shadow, something I don't control. That's the markets. But we certainly have great targets, but so it really depends how much money we raise. We'll prioritize. I mean, money is not endless. You want to dilute yourselves. But last year was a very hot market in the fall, so we were able to raise, 16, 18 million. So we'll have 5 million hard money by the end of January. We're in good shape financially. Won't have to raise the money to do that. But obviously, we'd love to raise some flow through. Hopefully the markets are in a good place so we can. But last year we spent 12.8 after when you include the Vendin, the joint venture money, and that came from them. So we raised with 10 million. If we can do 5 or 10 next year, we'll keep drilling. I mean, we're an exploration company. That's what we have to do is got to spend money, got to spend it wisely. And we have to make progress. And I do believe with every property we did, we learned something. And we were wise enough not to go after Bird Lake or whatever. We realized that we didn't get the information we wanted. Why waste drilling? Let's go to Murphy, where we found a conductor, the right zone with their ICO, and we're seeing the right kinks, as you would say. So that's you got to move. You got to be adjustable. So it depends how much we raise. We'll prioritize our spending. All depends on the results for the rest of the year.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And, Fission 3.0, you talked about being an exploration company, but, you're also a project generator, right? So,
right.
You want to bend a lot of these projects out. Is there a certain number of projects you need to keep in your own hopper to move forward? And then at what point do you bring others into the mix, and what kind of deals do you want to structure? Do you want to take ownership interest in them? Do you want to take royalties?
Yeah, it's always tough, but I think Traction is a good example where two different types of projects. We took chunks of the company. We get 9 or 15% of that company. We can, because there's two projects. Normally it's 9.9. We typically do, and we don't try to over promote. We try to look at it. Okay, if we had this property alone and we're going to properly drill it, how would we do it? We don't come up with numbers just to bloat them, but we come with numbers realistic. And I asked the technical team if we had our druthers, how much would we spend? And that's how we base it. Obviously deeper drilling costs a lot more money. So at the height of the market, we must have had 8 joint venture partners, banging on the door. But unfortunately, a lot of these players are not uranium players, momentum players. They want to do something with their shell. Let's be honest about it. So I don't know when that comes back, that kind of hysteria. Maybe it'll be this. It comes down to the uranium price. Like you say, it's gone from 63 back down to 40 in the 40s. That's, so we need to see the uranium price move up. As it does that, we'll be able to raise more money. That's something we don't control. We control how we watch our overhead, how we spend the money we do get.
Okay, and maybe last question on the company before one last M&A question. You mentioned you wanted to be in Canada. Would you consider working in any other jurisdictions?
Well, we raised that question on the board, and the answer was no, because our technical team doesn't have ISL, in situ mining experience. And that's why we were able to, help some guys down south do it. But no, the problem is also we tried that once before. And you get American people a little pissed off because up in Canada, you can use this flow through money. They didn't like it. That's why we had Strathmore split in 2 anyways. Now, UC is doing it because they had a history where they ran out to have some projects there. America can do that. We can't. I still think most people look at it, UEX as a U.S. company, right? Despite some assets they have. Like I said, I was surprised Amir did it, but then once I sat with them, I understood it, and I won't share that in public.
Okay. One last M&A question. Do you think it's possible big oil will be returning to uranium? Perhaps trying to benefit on the ESG angle. You know,
Sure.
I know they're already doing it in lithium, but I think that's because they already understand the lithium aquifers, right?
Sure, absolutely.
How
You know
about
what? I
uranium?
would love to see them. Knowing executives today that are so risk averse, I don't see it. That surprised me. I don't see a big guys doing it, but I can see some oil and gas, you know, but no, I think things become so specialized. It's like the old days, big companies in exploration, they don't even do that anymore. The culture is, you know, so I think people hate risk these days. I heard a stat the other day, there's more people in general counsel of the TSX than they have listing officers. Tells you where these big companies are going, which is no risk, no risk, no risk, you know, go away. And so I think that mentality is, you know, all through corporate America. It's just no risk, no risk, you know, and but that's fine because it leaves lots of room. Why was the late Lucas Lundin so good at what he did? He says, I'll go places that big companies won't. And he did. And they're, you know, Adam and the boys will do a great job carrying his legacy, but they're risk takers that other people, he says, I can't compete with Exxon in North America, but I can compete with them because he won't take the risks I'll take in the Middle East.
Mm. Yeah, it's hard to carry on legacy and pass the torch when everybody's afraid to say anything. So
yeah, exactly.
But gentlemen, thank you for sharing with us today. Dev and Ray from Fission 3.0. Thank you, everybody else, for tuning in. So go ahead, Dev.
Sorry, David, make sure you give them, everybody wants my number, prefer the email so we can set up a time to chat, because I got full schedules, but I can certainly set up a chat with everybody, the guys who want to direct chat with me and Ray.
You bet.
Okay. Sounds good.
Thanks, guys.
So great. Thank you very much. And, you know, we will be back tomorrow afternoon. We're going to, when Taylor sits down with Cordoba Minerals, that's August 9th, 2 p.m. Eastern. So thank you very much, everyone. Take care.
Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.